Something about the heavy tea road.
Let's go to Julian in Arlington, Texas. He knows about flushing it down. He's in Texas. What's growing on, Julian? First caller of the night.
Hey, what's up?
What's going on, brother?
Yeah, I just had a question about outtake and intake. I have an outtake fan which goes through my carbon filter and my lights that lead outside my tent, but I don't have an intake. So I was wondering if like that would like stun or reduce my plant's growth.
Well, for sure. You don't even have an open hole, or you just don't have an intake fan?
Well, I mean, I do keep like some flaps open.
Okay, so
I don't have no.
What's the temperature getting to inside the tent?
Sometimes anywhere from 75 to 85.
If you added a larger fan or an intake fan would help pressurize the inside of the thing. And
with the flaps open, he's in a tent.
Right. Because he has the flaps open, so it should be enough airflow through those flaps. But if you pump more air in, the air will remove itself easier.
And the flaps being open is what's known as a passive intake. You do have an intake. The negative pressure from the outtake fan will suck the air in through there.
Now, is it kind of sucking your tent in?
Well, no, not really.
Okay, then because I've seen people have like bigger fans, and when they zip the tent up, the sides and they kind of suck in a little bit because the flaps don't let enough airflow in. But if you're not experiencing that problem, then it's probably not going to make a difference whether or not you add any other fans. The only other thing you could do is go with a slightly larger fan that's connected to your charcoal filter and your lights to help remove the air quicker, which will lower the overall temperature.
It should be sucking in. You should have a negative pressure where all the walls start to concave when that fan is on. You said it goes through your light and then to the charcoal filter, but how big a fan are you using? Is it an inline or just a ducting fan?
It's a 6-inch inline.
All right, so it has approximately 470 or so CFM?
Yes.
Okay, then you're probably good because he's not removing more air than he's bringing in. There's probably still a slight negative pressure bringing in that fresh air from around it. The fluctuation from 75 to 85, if it's over a range of a 60-day grow, it's not a big deal if some of the hotter days are a little bit hotter when you're just exchanging air back and forth. But if you have this change multiple times during the week, where it's one day it's 75, the next day it's 85, the next day it's 75, the next day it's 85. You run into a condition where those fluctuating climates are the prime environment for powdery mildew and other pathogens to start growing. So you need to use preventative measures right now to stop yourself from getting powdery mildew. Same with humidity. If the humidity is real low with the lights on, and then when the lights go out, the plants transpire, release a lot of their built-up moisture, then the humidity can spike real high. And if that fluctuation is worse than just keeping it at a constant, slightly higher or slightly lower humidity, temperature, whatever, the fluctuation is what creates a prime environment for that PM to start growing.
Oh, okay, all right. And what about carbon dioxide? Do you think I'm getting enough carbon dioxide if I'm just taking air out?
You're getting constant influx of fresh.
He's bringing in the air in the room around it. He needs to bring outside air in.
Right, but as long as how big is the room the tent is in?
I don't really know. It's a lot bigger than the tent. I have like a 4x8 tent.
Okay, a 4x8 tent, and the room is a lot bigger than the tent. Can you leave like the door to the room open to get air into the room from outside of the room? The problem that you're going to have is you get fresh CO2 from fresh air, but if that room that it's in is small and it's sealed all the time, eventually you're going to be using all the CO2 that's in that room, and the room itself that the tent is in will probably have a lower CO2 rate than the outside air that's around it. But if you try to inject CO2, you're wasting it because you're just blowing it out of the tent anyways.
Well, listen, he has two environments here. He has the macro environment, which is the room, which is still a much smaller environment than what is outside. So unless you're bringing in outside air to replenish the CO2 and the cooler temperatures, we need to think of this as a controlled environment where I'm going to create the environment but it has to be big enough for the room around it. So I think better off than anything, if you can't plumb in new outside air or fresh air is to let's think about infusing CO2, but not in the tent, in the area around it, so we can bring the parts per million up to above 1,000 in the room around it. Then the air he's exchanging is just moving that air around. It's moving hot air in and out a larger area to diffuse the heat, but also the CO2 coming in is going to be higher. That may be a better idea for you than if for some reason, whether due to security, discretion, whatever it is, that you cannot go and bring fresh air. Because leaving the door open, you're still bringing it from the living quarters. Someone breathing in there
is going to raise the CO2 levels, and he might have a family of 15 living in his house in Texas, so maybe their CO2 levels are really high inside.
But I want to be as controlled as
Can you
possible.
put the tent in the room where all the kids sleep?
Why do you think he has kids? Maybe he is a kid. El niño.
Yeah, CO2 will increase your growing your weight by as much as 30% if all the other conditions are met. But
niño.
You're going to need to add CO2 for the entire room that the tent is in. So that could get pricey depending on how big that room is, because your measurement of it is a lot bigger than a 4x8 tent. And I'm not quite sure if that's metric or feet.
I think it may be just a little bit smaller than the grand ballroom at the Kennedy compound. And it's just a guess.
Could be. Where do you shop?
Abundant Harvest in Arlington.
Those guys are legit, man.
Abundant Harvest in Arlington.
Yeah, they're the one that recommended me to y'all.
Nice.
Awesome. So I'm going to send you some CO2 pads, okay? They're meant to be activated by humidity, so in your tent is where you're going to hang them. But if you're just blowing the CO2 out, you're going to need a lot of pads to get the CO2 around your environment up to snuff. So let's see. Do you take your own cuts? Do you take your own clones?
I wanted to this time, but it was too late. I'm already in flowering.
Okay, well, next time I'm going to send you some Green Pad Juniors so you can actually use that CO2, okay? I don't think with your intake, outtake system right now, Green Pads in your tent are going to make much of a difference until you seal that up one way or another. For the problem of potential powdery mildew from the variant of temperature and humidity, I'm going to send you some Outtake from Optic Foliar. Outtake is their brand new product that takes care of all kinds of fungus and prevents fungus from growing among us on your plants. They are the innovators that brought us the Transport, they brought us the Rev, and they brought us the Watts, formerly known as Megawatts. OpticFoliar.com, that's all they do. That is their specialty. And to bring your stuff up to AAA, I'm going to send you some of that Turpinator.
Turpinator!
Ooh, man. You'll be back to the hydro store to buy more Turpinator when you use this shit. All right, check it out at Turpinator.com. Julian, I appreciate you calling in. You stay safe out in Texas.
You're listening to DFCRadio.com.